Welcome to Comfort Crime with Lindsay Sanchez, a cozy mystery podcast where no actual crimes have been committed. Today, we'll continue Death at Dogwood Lake, a novella about Georgia Lennox, whose perfect first date turns into a perfect nightmare when she discovers a dead body, and instead of finding romance, she's pulled into a murder investigation where her hometown secrets run deeper than the alpine lake where it all started. If this is your first time here, welcome, and please start with episode 1, chapter 1. There is a link to it in the show notes. And for everyone else, we'll continue with chapter 8. But first, an update. This week, I'm doing something a little bit different, and honestly, it's a little bit terrifying. I finally got a collection of potential covers, and I'm asking you to help me choose the best one. Some of them I love, and some I'm on the fence about. There are designs that I've created on Canva. Yes, I went down that rabbit hole. There are some I generated with an AI tool, and others are from a professional designer I hired. They are all so different, and I genuinely can't decide which one best captures the cozy mystery vibe. And that's where you come in. I would love your honest feedback. So when you see this week's newsletter in your inbox, open it up and let me know which one makes you want to curl up in front of the fireplace and solve a mystery. And hey, if none of them do it for you, I want to know that too. Seriously, don't hold back. I promise I won't be offended if you tell me that my Canva creations look like it was designed by someone who's never seen a cozy mystery before. Okay, last time, Georgia questions Jake about the nursery and why it's struggling with funds. She lets him deal with the photo she took of the stolen contract, and they resolve together to report the missing hat from the lake. Georgia finally holds his hand again to comfort him, but when she admits that she wants to check out the Pineville Nursery and that she thinks that's probably where the man in the flip-flops is, Jake lets go of her hand and warns her that it wouldn't be safe for her to go there. Death at Dogwood Lake, Chapter 8. Georgia pedaled toward the invisible force that drew her to Pineville Nursery. She just knew that the man wearing flip-flops would be there. It was the only thing that made sense. She slowed as she neared the front of the nursery. Unlike Dogwood Nursery, where she'd just been, this one was quiet. There were no old men with shopping carts of snapdragons and rose bushes. There were no mothers with toddlers buckled in the seat of the cart. There were no landscapers pushing flatbeds of mulch and gravel. This was different. Wiping the sweat off her face with the sleeve of her dress, Georgia got off her bike and walked to the empty rack near the front door. She licked her dry lips, wishing for a drink of water, and squinted at the sign, shading her eyes against the glare of the sun. Pineville Nursery. The words just over the entrance were faded and worn, but clearly still there. A closed sign hung in the window near the front door. Well, at least that explained the lack of customers. Even the parking lot was empty. Georgia went to the front, checking what time the nursery would open. With every step she took, the pit of dread in her stomach tightened, and Jake's angry face and his warning floated back. It's not a normal nursery. She'd been so focused on dismissing him that she hadn't been paying attention to what that might mean or why he wouldn't want her to go. The hours of operation were etched in the glass next to the front door. Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m., except for Thursdays when they were open until 9, and Saturdays when they closed at 10 p.m. They were closed on Sunday. Whatever the sign said, the store was clearly closed now. Only birds swooped in and out of the open rafters, enjoying the sanctuary and the shade of an empty building full of plants and hiding places. Jake had been right. She shouldn't have come. Georgia couldn't put her finger on why, but she could tell she shouldn't be there, that she should turn around and leave now. But there was a clue. She could feel it. Some clue to what had happened this morning had to be there. Somehow this empty nursery was at least one piece of the puzzle to figuring out what had happened. Puzzle or no, there was nothing she could do at an empty store. There was no cluster of gardeners to hide behind. Or, on the bright side, nobody to hide from. And she was already here. The place was empty. What harm could a little bit of snooping do? Double-checking the empty parking lot, Georgia peered in the dark windows, cupping her hands around her eyes for a better look. It was quiet, except for the chirping of the birds. Georgia stood on her tiptoes, trying to glimpse over the row of evergreens. They were too tall. She gave up and walked to the other side. The sliding doors opened as she passed. The store was as quiet as she'd expected. Rows and rows of undisturbed plants. Georgia hesitated. It had been one thing to go into Owen Meadows' office, in a crowded store where she knew most of the workers, if not most of the customers, and both owners had been accounted for. As close as Pineville was to Dogwood Lake, Georgia had never been to this nursery. She'd never been to this part of town, mostly having come for the occasional shopping trip or to support her high school team when they played their rivals, the Pineville Stallions. The door stayed open, luring Georgia in. She reasoned perhaps the close sign had just been forgotten to be turned over, though the emptiness of the store and the parking lot clearly suggested otherwise. If the motion sensor doors were unlocked, maybe the nursery was open. Was it possible that there was some sort of game or event in town that had pulled the usual crowd away from their midweek chores, away from the garden center? Was it possible that it was perfectly fine for Georgia to take a step or two inside just to make sure? Owen's hat and the stolen contract could be there. With the doors open, it wouldn't technically be breaking and entering, even if it was clear that she really shouldn't be there. Still, she hesitated, Jake's warning echoing in the back of her head because there was something off about this place. It was all but abandoned. Just as Georgia was about to trust her squirming guts and take Jake's advice, leaving the creepy place behind, a truck pulled into the other side of the parking lot and circled around the back of the building. The loud engine turned off. Doors opened and slammed shut. Voices floated through the empty space. Georgia couldn't tell what they were saying, just the low rumble of men talking. She left the sliding glass doors. Now, more than ever, she shouldn't go inside. But if one of those men were wearing flip-flops, if she could just get a glimpse of their feet and be sure, maybe she'd have something more helpful to tell her dad when she called to make sure he knew about the hat. Grabbing her bike, Georgia quietly wheeled it toward the back. This way, if she got caught, she could pretend like she was just on a bike ride, which technically she was. At the back corner, she crouched down. With one hand against the rough brick for support, Georgia poked her head around the back of the building. One man stood in the bed of a truck counting large terracotta flower pots, while the other one secured a ramp to the back. Once the ramp was in place, he grabbed a dolly and wheeled it up. Together, they lifted a pot, placed it on the dolly, and carefully rolled it back down the ramp, like each pot was made of gold. They'd have to be that heavy. From George's angle, she couldn't see where they were taking them, but both of them had thick work boots on, like they were planning to go on a hike, or drop hammers on each other's toes. Whoever these guys were and whatever they were doing, neither of them were the ones that had stolen the contract. Georgia turned to leave. "Hello," a deep voice said from behind. Georgia jumped, almost running straight into a large man with gray hair and a Pineville Nursery polo and flip-flops. His friendly tone didn't match the wicked look on his face. "And what do we have here? A trespasser?" Georgia was too stunned to think of a response. She just stared at him with her mouth open. Where had he come from and how? She was the one that was supposed to be sneaking around. "Why don't you come with me? Let's find who you belong to," the man in the flip-flop said. It sounded like it was a suggestion, but she could tell it wasn't. She didn't move. "We don't take too kindly to trespassers here." He rubbed his chin like he was thinking. "But if you leave now, we can pretend like this never happened." It was the best deal Georgia was likely to get. Despite her previous curiosity, she no longer cared about what the other men were doing with their overly heavy pots or why the nursery was so empty. She'd been right. The man with the flip-flops was from Pineville, and he'd stolen that contract for a reason. Now she had proof. Kind of. "I was looking for hydrangeas." Georgia named the first flower in the row of plants behind the man. He glanced behind him, saw the bush, and grinned, like he knew exactly why she was really there. "Oi, boys," he called to the two men moving the pots. "Make sure our guest here doesn't leave. I think our uniformed friends will want to know about this." "Right, boss." The one in the truck hopped out and came to stand by Georgia. Not close enough to be threatening, but definitely close enough that he could catch her if she tried to run. "I wasn't trespassing," Georgia called after the big man as he flip-flopped away, his shoes slapping heavily against the hot concrete as he went. He didn't stop. Georgia knew, trespassing or not, her dad would know what she had been up to. It would be obvious she was poking around the investigation on her own, and he would be furious. Being involved with the police twice in one day was more than her parents would tolerate. The fact that it was her birthday wouldn't help this time. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a mystery-loving friend, or consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast player. Most of all, thank you so much for being here today. I loved it, and I'm already excited for next week.